And then I ask myself, and you talk about issues, national security issues like Boko Haram. Look, just like the problem we had in Niger Delta, a good chunk of the problem actually derived from the fundamental breakdown of the normative order. In other words, traditional authority, they are in flight. Small boys who can lob guns, who can lob bombs now, they are the ones that determine. So these are things we need to sit down and talk about. Our flight of fancy into constitutionalism, I agree, yes, we need to restructure. But sincerely speaking, even when you have done the restructuring of Nigeria Federation, which is key, you still need to look at the software of our values. How do we get Nigerians, for instance, to appreciate the other person, to own up to responsibility? In your neighborhood, your personal security is important to you, to the extent that you collaborate with your neighbors. You put a guard there because you know you have a direct responsibility. Everybody talks about Abuja, as if Abuja will solve our problems. Never. Abuja will never. In the United States that we love to quote, we like to cite so much. A number of the problems, in fact, the chunk of the problems are municipal in nature. Until we begin to accept responsibility, that's why somebody will drive and create problems on the highway, create bedlams on the highway, and he will insult Fashola. Whereas, all that we need to do is just to get people to think of the fellow feelings. So those are the issues that we need to discuss. How do we first restore traditional authorities? And that starts with the communities. Then, of course, the larger architecture. How do we decentralize power? Because power is a monster that is gnawing away at the soul of this nation until we are able to properly hold power and put power in its place.
Cage it.
To serve the people, as against being an instrument of oppression. Because that's what people see, conceive of. The symbol, the trappings of it is what actually has become the problem for this country.
Okay, let me take a different direction now and come to you, Malachy. Some people have said they're quoting a lyric by a musician, Editorial Yuba, some years ago, where he said, if you're not there, you can't get involved or you can't engage. When you have some government, state government, and political parties saying that we're not interested, this is going to be completely shambolic and a complete waste of time. But if you're not there, you really cannot contribute. What is your thought in terms of those who say they will completely abstain?
I don't entirely agree with that person. I believe that participation could be at different forms. Those who will go there will be part of the discussion and deliberation and resolutions that come out of it. What happens to those resolutions is even the Nigerian People's Project. And this is where I speak to the need of effective advocacy. We've had seriously in this country, Tony will bear me out on this, campaign groups that takes up issues. It could be on environment, it could be on human rights, it could be on anything, and rub it in. So much so, like he said, you almost become indispensable on issues relating to those core concerns. We cannot, and that is practically speaking, we cannot all be there. Democracy, constitutional democracy, representative democracy has left the ancient Greeks stage. It must be true representation. Now, those who have also said they won't be part of it has also found a way, surreptitiously, if you want to be uncharitable to them, become part of it. Because whereas as a party, they are not. Representations from their respective states are already on record to be participating. Interest groups operational within those states are also there. Religious bodies, and this time we must not forget that even people living with disabilities are part of it, diaspora, and so on and so forth. So I think that, look, even for the timing, whatever comes out of this conference can also define the kind of politics that we'll witness from now till leading up to 2015. And how do I mean? If the conference, as we expect it, because we'll all be participating through those we have said go there, if they resolve, for instance, that the question of citizenship must be settled one way or the other, just so to take care of the kind of carnage you're witnessing in Plateau and so on and so forth. If we come out with a resolution on state policing, assuming that carries the day, if people distinguish between federalism and fiscal federalism, and then clearly identify what we need here in terms of dealing with the heterogeneous nature of this country, if we resolve on the question of devolution of power, just so that, like my friend said, local government will not have to run to Abuja before they exist. All of these resolutions, whether passed through referendum or whatever, if it eludes any of the political party that is gunning for, you will begin to know that these ones they are not even in touch with what the people want. So I believe that participation can even be more robust after this conference, through organized civil society groups, through interest bodies, religious organizations, and so on and so forth. That would be my take on it.
Okay.
Now, Tony, some people have said that for them, two major issues need to be dealt with. One, finance. Two, national security. The issue of finance, as in what Sanya referred to, every month we carry our cap in our hand, we go to Abuja and collect money. That needs to be sorted out so that each state can generate its own funds and not wait to go to Abuja at the end of every month. And then the issue of national security in light of things that are happening in Plateau, for instance, and in the Northeast.
I think the Southern Leaders Summit, which was held in Calabar a couple of weeks ago, it was covered live by your station, focused, as I had hoped most people would be focusing, on the issues that were going to bring about positive change along the lines of what Sanya and Malachy have now stated. For example, you cannot but have devolution of powers if you are going to have a better Nigeria. You cannot but have federalism.
True.
Because the word true is so abused.
So we have a federalism now.
Federalism. No, we have a unitary system. On paper.
We call it a federal.
We call it.
But the rope does not make the monk.
We need to have federalism in place such that the different federating units and the center will have coordinate powers. And you will have one legislative list which will be attributed to the federal government, and it will have a limit such that, for example, primary education should not at all be under the purview of the federal government of Nigeria. We don't have the same primary educational values or objectives all over the country. Every area, every zone, every state, every community has its objectives. For example, I have heard the repeated attempts, and the kind of declaration did it too, at revisionism, where people say things like, we funded Nigeria, or our ground-up pyramids, or whatever, were used to keep Nigeria going until oil came into play. Whereas, under the 60 and 63 constitutions, and in practice at those times, we all know that every region funded itself. Every region decided what it wanted to develop, and every region developed at its own pace. Every region had its constitution, had its flag, had in fact its own anthem. These are things that define, to a large extent, superficially you may think, what federalism is about. You must devolve powers in such a way that the federating unit must be able to decide. If, for example, you say federating units are zones, well, let the zone decide whether he wants 50 states, 1 million local